Pitch to Pro is the official podcast of USL Arkansas. This will be our platform to tell our story about the club and the special place that we call home, Northwest Arkansas. This is a journey. We want to bring you along for the ride. We'll share what's going on behind the curtain, help educate the community at large about soccer, our league, and give updates on the progress of the club along the way. Together, we'll explore and unpack our journey to professional soccer, the magic that is NWA, our community, and talk all things soccer from on the pitch to behind the scenes, telling the story of our club. Pitch to Pro podcast is proudly sponsored by podcastvideos.com. Podcastvideos.com is Northwest Arkansas's premier podcast recording studio. Equipped with industry-leading equipment, the recording studio and services save you time, money, and hassle. They are dedicated to helping you create, record, and publish high-quality podcasts for your audience. Be sure to check them out today at podcastvideos.com.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Pitch to Pro podcast. My name is Wes Harris. I'm your host, managing director for USL Arkansas, Northwest Arkansas's professional soccer club playing in the United Soccer League. We are here today with just an incredible guest. We're very, very fortunate to have him come on, Mr. Mayor Greg Hines of Rogers. Thank you so much for joining me today. This is going to be a wonderful chat. I can't wait.
Yeah, it's great to be here with you, Wes. Thanks for the invite. I was excited when you reached out, and looking forward to sharing a little bit of my thoughts as they relate to USL.
Wonderful. Well, this is just great. So, Mayor Hines, you've done an incredible job, and your team, on just the growth that we've done within Rogers. You guys have obviously been a part of everything that NWA has done over the last several years. Can you just shed a little bit of light on some of the things that you're most proud of, some of the big wins that, I'm sure people know about, but just to kind of re-engage folks and re-wrap our heads around where were we, where have we been, kind of where we're going from your perspective?
Yeah, so this is my 25th year in elective office, 14th year as mayor. So, I've been doing this for a little while, and I've seen a lot of change, a lot of transformational change. Not only in the region and what the region looks like and the sort of makeup of the people of the region, but sort of the spirit of the region.
Yeah.
It's been super neat to watch how the area that I grew up in, that was relatively small and everybody kind of knew everybody. And even the Fortune 500, 100 folks, I mean, they were just normal folks that we all grew up with. Yeah. And to see that entrepreneurial spirit, that community spirit, and then to know today, moving, years forward, more than 50% of the people that live in Northwest Arkansas did not grow up here.
Right.
And so typically when you see a shift like that, you kind of lose some of maybe what the nostalgic thoughts of people like me that grew up here. And it's just simply not the case. It's like the folks that have come here from other places in the world embrace this secret spirit of Northwest Arkansas and just sort of replicate it and make it, fold it into a part of their life. So to me, it's all about getting deals done and certainly trying to add to our foray of entertainment and dining, because that's kind of what we've become known as in Northwest Arkansas, where Rogers is kind of the downtown of Northwest Arkansas. If you're gonna be entertained, if you're gonna eat out, if you're gonna stay at a hotel, you're likely gonna visit here at some point. And so places like Topgolf and ventures like Bass Pro and those things are huge wins, right? They're legacy wins, they're anchor wins that allow us to sort of expand without as much probably punching above our weight limit.
Sure.
My grandmother used to laugh before she passed away. She lived in Oklahoma City, and she just couldn't believe that she would have to come see her grandson in Rogers, Arkansas to eat at Ruth's Chris. Wow. There is no Ruth's Chris in Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
And so, there's just things like that make it special. They will continue to happen based on where we are sort of ranked within the country now, being in that top 100.
Yep.
We're going to get site selectors visits. We don't have to beg to get folks to get on a plane and come here and take a look around. And that comes with, that's good and bad. It's challenge. It comes with its own set of challenges. Because for the first time now, where we're not having to beg site selectors to come in and give us a shot for things, you also have to recognize that the rest of the story, which is not necessarily the folks that you want to come here,
Right.
they recognize that this is a great place to do business too, because crime's a business as well. And so we've got we're in this reflection point right now where we've got to figure out, how do we continue to guard, our community and our place that is so special, but at the same time continuing to be so inviting and welcoming folks with open arms. It's going to be a bit of a challenge, but hey, that I tell my team all the time, as good as we have it here, they get down sometimes, and everybody does that. But I remind them of 4 or 5 locations that I won't call out today. You could had this job there,
Right.
so we're gonna meet our challenges with a smile and with an optimistic attitude, and hopefully we're gonna get it right more than we get it wrong.
Absolutely. No, and I think those are great examples, and kind of I very much echo that. And when I tell people, there's just something different about the general spirit of the place, and how. I didn't grow up here, but I've been here about collectively now a decade, and can share in hopefully that understanding and adoption of what it means to be in and from Northwest Arkansas, hopefully. And hopefully I do that justice in how I welcome others in and am an advocate for the area, and just talk all about how great and special this place is. And so I very much echo that, and it's an interesting thing to try to describe to people. It really is, because I've lived a lot of different places, and I've never experienced it to the degree that I have here, and it's by some margin too. So it's hard to describe that until you've been here. It's hard to describe the place. And we get it starts with a visit, as J.R. Shaw likes to say, and Destination Rodders and all those things. We just had him on the last podcast, and that for sure is true. People come, they see. But to describe the spirit of what it means to be a resident and partake is kind of that next step, right? And is different to describe and explain to people.
Well, I'm glad you find it as hard to describe as I do, because I thought maybe it was just me. But that's kind of it's good to know. Actually, it's comforting, I guess, to know that it is just something special that's hard to put into words. And whether you grew up here or you transplanted here and you bought into it, it's still hard to figure out what it is.
It's a feeling. Yeah, it is. It's a magical feeling too. To be embraced and welcomed, by and large by the general populace. So, in a way that is just so above and beyond, being kind to your neighbor.
And I think that's kind of what y'all embody also. I mean, if you look at the organization, you look at the sort of the mission, vision, not league, it's league wide, but even more specific to this footprint here is the intentionality of community of it. It's a professional sport. It's a huge deal. It's exciting it's as exciting to as many adults as it is children. But I mean, you just look across the spectrum. And I didn't play soccer growing up. It just wasn't a sport that was widely played here. It is now, of course, and I've watched it expand and developed my own sense of what it means to be a fan. Of course, Ted Lasso probably helped all of us understand on a much bigger level what soccer and how nuts it is, and the fan base. Yeah. But I think that's one of the things that I've really appreciated throughout this process, trying to get off the ground is just that it's a business. It's a business, right? And you're not running a nonprofit, but at the same time, there seems to be as much excitement and real thought put into how are we a part of the community as much as can we raise the capital, can this work? Because I think based on what I'm hearing and what I've observed from, kind of your team is that they know it doesn't matter if it pencils out, that's great. But if you're not part of the community, it's not going to be sustainable. No. And so I just think it's a testament to I think probably what for me looks like this whole package management team, this kind of holistic approach, that that's what success usually is bred out of. So
Yeah. No, and thank you. It has been very intentional. Yes, look, listen, we're at the end of the day, we are a business, and we need to be such to continue and make sure that we have this incredible offering to bring and be a part of the community. But we are not successful without the support of the community. And how do you, and not just support from the community, but it's also about, that's the what, but it's also about the how. And being, as you've seen, very intentional along the way, we continue to hit on it, is this is not our club. Everybody wants to know what the name is going to be. That's probably what's the name going to be? What's the name going to be? What's the crest? What's the colors? Sure. And we've been very intentional about making sure that we get so much feedback so that we feel good about when we're asked, why is the name this? Why is the color this? Why is the crest this? We can point back to our process, which has been involving the community at multiple stages across multiple mediums at different times, and truly trying to capture the voice of the different pockets and sectors of our community across multiple backgrounds and peoples. And that takes time.
Yeah.
And to sift through it. What do people really mean? What do they want? Why do they love NWA? And I think we touched about a little bit about why you and I love Northwest Arkansas. It's that magic that we feel, that spirit about living here, along with many other things. But that is, to your point, very, very intentional. And I'm a big soccer guy. So I played soccer nerd, self-professed. Ted Lasso does a really nice job, by the way. So don't ever feel bad about bringing him up and how much he loved it, because it was, or, if you didn't, but it did. That show actually, it's crazy because people joke about like, oh, I'm just a Ted Lasso soccer fan. That show did such an incredible job of not just the drama and the action and like the great writing and show, but of showing what soccer culture is and the highs and lows of kind of, promotion and relegation, which is a whole other conversation about moving up and down. It's kind of foreign to American sports, but it did a really great job of understanding what soccer culture is and grassroots in that small pocket community, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what we're trying to bring here. And so we're so excited about and what gets us up in the morning, at least, our team today, is the impact that we can have off the field.
Yeah.
That's, and the relationships that we can build with our communities off the field. I love and am so excited about people being passionate and excited about what's going to happen in the games and the matches and coming to the games and the chants and all those things. Being season ticket holders, we need those things. We want those things. Just know that that's the meat of why is it exciting to do what you do, Wes or Warren or Chris. And it's the power and impact of sport off the field and how we can help unify, uplift, and propel our community. And that's what we're hopefully going to be able to do.
Yeah. And I think, I think soccer uniquely above any other sport really puts you in a place to have a conversation where it's a whole community coming together to support the team or to support a cause. And there's just few other opportunities that I've been exposed to that sort of, from a broader perspective, bring everybody together in a common cause. And, God knows in the environment we live in today, regardless where you fall on the political lines or religious lines or any of those things, there's just not a lot that we're all agreeing on and coalescing towards. We can't even agree and coalesce towards, peace around the world and what that looks like. So, without taking it to that level, there's just few opportunities for someone in the C-suite at Tyson, to meet up with someone that just started at their processing plant on Old Ridge Street and sit in proximity to one another and holler and scream and coalesce behind a team. And then how that translates off the field is that the exposure to an invitation to participate in community-driven events. And the passion to do that may only be the hook to the team, because you feel obligated, you feel like you owe your team, to get involved outside of. And so whatever brings those people together and creates those conversations, it really matters not what started it. It's the product that you end up with at the end of the day, whether it's build a habitat house or it's, helping some family that's found themselves, in kind of one-time issue, which I know y'all have been a part of, and see how that kind of works. And so
I'm glad you said that. I mean, a lot of the time what we find is, people are looking or have maybe not overt, but maybe an inherent desire to participate in their community in a different way, in a bigger way than they may have. But they don't feel that connection just yet, to be able to do that, or they don't know how, right?
How do we do it? Yeah.
And so, but then they find this thing that they're connected to and passionate about, and then they go to maybe one, they find that inclination to go and that drive to go, and then they're hooked.
Yeah.
Or now they've known, or now they met somebody, to your point. And so it's a connector and a relationship builder in so many different ways. And that's the stuff that gets us so excited.
Yeah. It is. And I gotta say, I know this is, this isn't a part of necessarily what we're talking about today, but, I've reflected back on, growing up here in professional sports and what access did I have? Okay. And exposure to professional athletes, which I gotta tell you, if you play any sport, right? Being in the presence of or meeting, someone, whether it's your hero or not, in the sporting world is a huge deal for a kid. And we kind of forget that as adults. I'm not waiting in line for autographs from anybody. But I've looked back and I think back when Champions Golf Course first opened, my grandparents were one of the first members, first 100 members of the club. And they had a deal here that was aired live on CBS called the Greg Norman Challenge. And they had Greg Norman here, and he played a scramble, or Wayne Gretzky, Yvonne Lindell, and Larry Bird played a 3-man scramble against Greg Norman in a 2-day event. Just amazing, to be on my home ground and seeing these icons that represent, a span of 4 sports. And then you fast forward today, and I go to LPGA with my 2 daughters who are now in their 20s, but they've been going since it first started, and just seeing them be able to be exposed to and be around professional level sports. And it just elevated sort of their own idea of what sports meant to them and what they could achieve. Now, they knew they weren't going to go off and be Olympic, volleyball players, but they could aspire to be, right? Yeah. And I never really had that kind of dream. So it's really cool to just think about the idea that these young people in our community are going to be around professional baseball players, professional golfers, professional soccer players, and that will be a norm of growing up here.
Yep. And that's also part of, that's part of what we aspire to do is within the soccer community is we know that there's, a lot of players that may not have an option. We've done a great job. Those clubs have done a great job to elevate and grow the game. I think that they would all tell you, and they all told us in our listening sessions that, we have kind of a bit of a challenge when those players are ready for that next step, that are really serious about trying to either go pro or serious Division I college, trajectory, and looking for something bigger and more competitive than maybe what Arkansas can offer, at least in its current state.
Yeah.
Obviously we're continuing to grow the game every day, but there's also realities in play. And they will tell you that they lose players to Kansas City, to Dallas, to Tulsa, or they're driving,
right,
or their families are moving in some instances, in the extreme. And so how do we help provide maybe, in what the vehicle looks maybe and how it manifests itself? There's a million ways it can go. So not necessarily from a structure standpoint, but from an aspirational standpoint on how do we give them something to aspire to right here in their backyard, with some level underneath that, whatever that looks like, as a pathway.
Right.
Create the pathways. That's what we heard from our club coaches and directors of coaching and all those folks. So to your point on how do you build that connection to aspiration for the youth within sport and what that does for communities, I think is something special as well.
I do
So,
too.
well, what do you, let's look ahead. Let's talk a little bit about, goals, growth of Rogers, of NWA. How do you see us, you've talked a little bit in sharing about your excitement about our project, but how do you see us fitting in? How, what does this mean for this community?
Yeah, well, I mean, y'all are finding yourselves kind of, in the heart of the melon from just a logistical standpoint, location wise. And, we see the projections of the growth of the region, and we all know the numbers, and we all focus on the kind of 1 million.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at things now from a different land use perspective, from a different planning perspective, because somewhere in Northwest Arkansas, is going to be vertical. I mean, you can't have that many people in the region without some pretty serious vertical construction. And even if you don't set your sight on, 30, 40 story buildings, you just think about how do you house that many people? And that requires vertical construction that is, likely not stick built and more readaptive use type construction, which is long-term better for any city in America. But we think that's us. We think that because of our rewrites and our land use and currently our codes, that will likely at least be the first community to be looked at for that type of development, because it's going to be available here, and you're not going to have to jump through hoops to get to it. And so, as that continues to build out, you are going to see this area that we're in right now is a very much more walkable, bikeable, pedestrian, just very pedestrian friendly. And it won't be abnormal to pull up to a stoplight and see people waiting for the crosswalk.
Sure.
Now we look across and think, well, did their car break down? Why are they out there? Why, which is so crazy if you go to a major metro area. I mean, everybody walks,
Everybody's
right?
walking around,
where you're dodging the taxi cabs.
Yep.
And so I think as this area becomes that, you guys are more of a neighborhood. You're just part of the fabric of a neighborhood, right?
That's exactly it.
And so to me, that's pretty special. It's pretty neat. And because of the geographic location you're in, you're attached to Midtown and Uptown Rogers. You're kind of right on the on the edge of both of those things. And so I think you're going to be seen granularly as this is my neighborhood entertainment. And then as you move out, obviously, someone in Fayetteville was like, well, this is our team, this is our Northwest Arkansas team. So, it's not about Rogers, Springdale, Bentonville, Fayetteville, Siloam Springs, Bella Vista, but you name the city, Lowell. It's about the region.
Yeah.
It's about Northwest Arkansas. It has to be. We all, we joke all the time that it'd be nice if we could get more regionalism driven, it hurts us sometimes when we're these four competing major cities along the corridor. And I said, hey, look, I'm all for regionalism. We can merge them all as long as I'm the mayor. So I'm cool with it, right?
Exactly.
But all joking aside, I do think that what I've seen transform over the last number of decades is a really intentionally working towards regionalistic solutions for problems that we all face, because we can't do it individually. And I saw what the naturals meant when it came here on the you're kind of in the throes of the last holdout Friday Night Lights, them against us, and they didn't get the benefit of feeling a region coalesce around a team,
Right.
it was the Springdale match. Now that's changed, I think.
Sure.
But it's a very slow progression based on where the community was then. You guys, I mean, I have to fight for an identity that it's even in Rogers,
Right.
which I love.
Right.
Okay. Because that means the community in the region, they've bought it as a regional amenity and a regional brand. And so for that reason, that's super exciting to me because, again, there's just not a lot of examples of that you can point to.
And I think as well, we are in a little bit of that transition phase as a region. And how do we talk about ourselves as a region and build things together, and the growth and birth of, and what the NWA Council does, and how they bring the region together and work together towards some bigger projects. I think are all incredible examples. And I think you're right on kind of that transition phase period, which I think people, start talking about it now as a region, and where do they live? And there's starting to become less of that back and forth, which, I think, again, you can have pros and cons with every transition. It's about how you face those together and rally around, with open minds, open hearts, and open eyes, and try to find the good in everything and silver linings. So, and deal with the challenges together, which I think we are. So back to your, some of your previous comments is, deal with them with us, come to our challenges with a smile and together. And I think we'll be in a good place.
I agree.
And so, that's great. I want to, coming back to just your point there on, feeling like this is where we're located and how, they're just a part of my community and this is what it is. And that's exactly what we want. And I think to build on that is, this facility that we're aspiring to put together is going to be for a lot more than just soccer. And yes, soccer, again, I'm very excited over here. And that's what's going to stand that up. But that's maybe 40, 50 nights of the year when you've got men's and women's combined in full seasons, full throws, full swing of things, 40, 50 nights a year. There's obviously 350 more, depending on how you look at it, that we can use for how do we integrate this thing into the fabric of what we're doing in so many different cool events, and how do we bring that to that space and make it a community space and a solution set for, our residents all over, not just Rogers, all over NWA. How do we make sure that we use that so that it is a true community staple and benefit and building, and not just a soccer stadium?
Yeah, and I started to say this earlier, but then I kind of backed off when I started to say, that it's my neighborhood. So I started to say it's my neighborhood entertainment venue, right?
Is.
And so, but it's not my call to make, it's not my brand to form, but to me, yes, it's got all these other adaptive uses that really will, there's plenty of good ideas in how these things work in other places in the country, right? So there's playbooks that does, a million. But it also has to sort of work its way into the Northwest Arkansas way of doing things.
Correct.
And so, I think that's another really cool point, that a recognized point on y'all's behalf is just that, there's a playbook and there's a way to pencil all this stuff out, and we're going to do that. But we want to make sure that there's plenty of room left for, well, what does our community want? What do the people of Northwest Arkansas want to see, or don't have as much access to as they would like? Or, and one of the things that comes to mind that's obviously, top of mind for any venue like this is, of course, live entertainment, music. Mm-hmm. And, we have the AMP, huge venue, outdoor pavilion. We just remodeled and have, our old historic theater downtown that we're doing concerts at. Bentonville has Momentary, Fayetteville has, everybody at Arts Center. You've got all these different venues that all sort of attract and or attach to certain types of performers. There's a niche in the size of this venue, and the uniqueness of that it's pretty close. You'd be pretty intimate, but it still can pack a big crowd,
Especially if you put people on the field, you can fit at the beginning, roughly 15, 17,000 people.
Yeah. So
somewhere in that ballpark.
that's big. That's a big venue. So I'm curious as to see how it's, how that's going to play out, with different shows that, because that's it. When the AMP first started, that was kind of how they could get some pretty big names. Was that, it was just these bands were between two big cities, and we're just begging to be just a 2-day stop off, or quick stop along the way. And that's not as much the case now as it was before. But I think that'll be interesting to see what gap does this fill that we don't already know we're missing out on.
Exactly. You hit the nail on the head. Listen, we want to use the space and use it, program the out of it, and that's our goal. And how do we ingrain that and be a part of a solution set, or even just something new and exciting to host an event at, or whatever the case may be. But it needs to be the Northwest Arkansas way. It needs to be complementary. It can't be cannibalistic. It can't be stepping on toes and not playing well in the sandbox. The AMP is there. It has been phenomenal to watch that grow. I lived right next to it in the JCPenney parking lot in Northwest Arkansas Mall years ago. And to see the evolution and growth into what we have today, I mean, my goodness, just incredible. And so if we even come close to that, we reach out to them, we work with them, not against them. That's absolutely just not how we're going to do things as part of our club. And that's just, again, goes back to we're in this together. How do we play well together and continue to uplift and bring new solutions and different levers that we can pull and fun new entertainment things. Who knows what the case may be, but we would love, invite the community along the way to come up with some ideas and help us down that path and be part of the process again. And so that's exactly the goal. We love the chance that we have to be able to do that. And so I think we'll do some pretty special things.
Yeah, I do too. I feel pretty comfortable that we'll have some pretty class act entertainment.
Absolutely. Well, Mayor Hines, thank you so much, sir. This has been just an outstanding conversation. Really appreciate you taking the time, and thank you for everything that you're doing for Rogers and for Northwest Arkansas at large.
I appreciate it. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you, and I'll look forward to doing it again.
Thank you so much. And to everybody, all of our listeners, remember you can find us at USL Arkansas on all platforms, and listen to the podcast at Pitch to Pro on wherever you may listen to your podcast. Until next time, thanks, Northwest Arkansas. Cheers.